And I thank the Honorable CS for Treasury and Economic Planning for finding it useful to attend these sessions, as it was stated earlier on that the former CS has not been very cooperative as far as this issue is concerned. It also goes to show that I take a lot of pride in the fact that I share a profession with him and also the same party. And it only shows that ODM puts forward the best of the best, the creme de la creme, as far as brains is concerned. Thank you, Waziri. On behalf of the Senator for Kisumu County, Senator Professor Tom Ojienda, Senior Counsel, MP, I ask the following questions. Could the Cabinet Secretary clarify whether the ministry undertook any public engagement on the necessity of the tax measures contained in the Finance Bill 2024, and also state any measures put in place to ensure future public engagements are adequate and meaningful to avert demonstrations similar to those witnessed in June, July, and August 2024. Secondly, has the government assessed the economic impact of the demonstrations in terms of loss of revenue, as well as the number and value of businesses and other properties that were vandalized and or looted? And if so, could the Cabinet Secretary highlight the findings of the assessment? Thirdly, how has the economic disruption from the demonstrations, coupled with the downgrade of Kenya's credit rating, impacted the ability of Kenya to service her debts, and could the Cabinet Secretary explain to any steps taken to stabilize the economy, restore investor confidence, and stabilize the credit rating? Fourth, could the Cabinet Secretary also outline any measures put in place by the government to ensure greater transparency and accountability in taxation and government spending? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Cabinet Secretary, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to ask Senator Mbadi for asking the questions on behalf of the Senator for Kisumu, and I will respond to the questions raised. This is the final question. The Senator for Kisumu wanted to know, or clarity from me, whether the ministry undertook any public engagement on the necessity of the tax measures contained in the Finance Bill of 2024, and also states any measures put in place to ensure future public engagements are adequate and meaningful to avert demonstrations similar to those witnessed in June, July, and August 2024. Mr. Speaker, my answer is as follows. The annual budgeting processes that are taken in consideration of public participation and constitutional requirement. Process leading to the preparation of the budget estimate for the financial year 2024-25 began with a public workshop to open sector hearings. During sector hearings for the spending in the financial year 2024-25, all stakeholders were invited to make submissions on priority areas that should receive exchequer funding. This informed the budget ceilings as contained in the Budget Policy Statement 2024 and the Fiscal Framework. The Budget Policy Statement for the financial year 24-25 informed the revenue requirements that the government needed to fund the budget. This in turn informed the revenue targets for the financial year 24-25 and the amount that needed to be raised through additional tax policy measures that were contained in the Finance Bill 2024. In terms of tax measures that were contained in the Finance Bill of 2024, the National Treasury started by issuing a public notice requesting for tax proposals that will be contained in the Finance Bill of 2024 way back in November 2023. Stakeholders responded to the public notice and submitted proposals. The National Treasury constituted a committee consisting of the National Treasury, the Kenya Revenue Authority, and the Attorney General's Office to review the proposals and make recommendation to the Cabinet Secretary. And during the review of the proposals, the committee invited stakeholders that submitted the proposals for meetings where the proposals were discussed and clarifications made to the committee. The meetings were held at the National Treasury building and was attended by the following stakeholders. We have a number of them. I may just mention a few. COCO, there is BAT, there is NIFCA, We had Ernst and Martin, Ernst and Young. These are professional audit firms. There's PricewaterhouseCoopers, stroke Safaricom. They came together. KEPSA was there. Kenya Association of Manufacturers, Kenya Flower Council. We have KPMG, the International Institute for Legislative Affairs, Ongaya Ombo Advocates, Deloitte, Johnson and Johnson's and Sons, ISPAC appeared, Ministry of Energy and Petroleum came, American Chambers of Commerce, Kenya Wine Agencies, Legal and Tax Associates, Kenya Breweries Limited, stroke UDV Kenya, Capital Markets Authority, Retirement Benefit Authority, Ministry of Investment and Trade Industry. Now, the reviewed proposals were then submitted to the Cabinet Secretary for consideration and approval. After approval, the proposals were used to develop the Finance Bill 2024. The National Treasury submitted to the National Assembly the Finance Bill 2024 for publication in the Kenya Gazette by 30th April and further public engagement on the bill. I just wanted to add onto this, Mr. Speaker, that because another part of the question was, what are we trying to do to avoid any future, to avert demonstrations similar to the ones that we witnessed? My ministry has embarked on a process of being more open and transparent on the steps and processes that we take, especially regarding proposals on taxation and such like initiatives. Recently, I think on 20th of last month, we had put out an advert inviting comments and opinions from the public, which is ending on 4th, that is this coming Friday. We want Kenyans to tell us a number of issues, to speak to us and tell us what we should do in order to manage our economy better in terms of public debt, in terms of taxation measures, and also in terms of what should we do in the event that the Parliament is not able to pass the two bills which are very critical for transfer of funds to the counties. So we have started engaging, and we also started the process of 2025-26 budget, preparation of the budget, and we launched it publicly at KICC. And I'm intending to have regular media briefings to just highlight and inform the public what we are intending to do. And listening to the public will be able to carry forward only those proposals which would find favor with the majority of Kenyans. I want to end that submission on that particular aspect by saying that, unlike previously, my ministry will, going forward, be able to explain and publicly every proposal that we contain or carry in the finance bill. I think one of the biggest challenges that, or what faced the finance bill of 2024 was the fact that there was no proper communication from the National Treasury on these proposals, including the motor vehicle tax, which no one came out from the National Treasury to explain. I want to give a commitment that any proposal that we'll put forward to Parliament in terms of tax changes or any other financial issue will be properly explained. Number B, or the second issue, Mr. Speaker, and I will go through it very quickly, is how, as the government assessed the economic impact, of the demonstration in terms of loss of revenue, as well as the number and value of businesses and other properties that were vandalized and or looted, and if so, could my office highlight the findings of the assessment? My response is as follows. The demonstrations affected businesses and industries. Mr. Speaker, in major cities, businesses were closed and some were destroyed. This affected revenue collection. The demonstrations led to the withdrawal of Finance Bill 2024, resulting in a revenue loss and therefore a financing gap of approximately 344.3 billion in the financial year 24-25. Mr. Speaker, in the month of July and August 2024, because you remember that we had demonstrations almost up to 8th August, I think that is the last demonstration that we saw. Ordinary revenue collection is lagging behind target by 18.5 billion. The total revenue collection, including ministerial appropriation in aid, for the period ending August 2024, that is for the 2 months, was 373.5 billion, which is 2.3% of GDP, against a target of 403.1 billion, recording a shortfall of 29.6 billion as shown in the table which I've provided, and I'll not read the table because it's a long one. So total revenue for the period grew by 6.3% compared to a growth of 12.4% in the previous year in August 2023, while ordinary revenue grew by only 3.2% if you compare to a growth rate of 9.9% in August of 2023. All the tax heads remained below respective targets. So I have provided the statistic that are on the table there on cumulative revenue performance by August 2024 as shown in millions. The below target performance in total revenue was on account of shortfall in ministerial A in A at 11.1 billion, and ordinary revenues, as I indicated earlier, of 18.5 billion. So under the ordinary revenue categories, import duty was below target by 845 million, excise taxes was below target by 4.9 billion, VAT was below target by 10.2 billion, income tax was below target by Kenya shillings at a tune of 3 billion shillings. The slower growth of ordinary revenue by 3.2% by August 2024, compared with a growth of 9% over the same period in 2023, demonstrate the impact of slower economic activity since June 2024. However, revenue performance is expected to bounce back going forward given the stability in the macroeconomic environment. Inflation rate is firmly under control currently at 4.4% in August 2024. Overall inflation, actually the latest data, what I signed off yesterday, is that our inflation has even come down to 3.6%, Mr. Speaker. This one is below the midpoint of the target, which is 5%, for 3 consecutive months. So if you look at month of June, July, and August, now the 4th month, we are below 5%. This is a drop from 6.7% in August 2023, and a peak of 9.6% in October 2022, when we had the worst inflationary pressures in this country. The pass-through effects of the strengthening exchange rate since February 2024 and the tight monetary policy stance by Central Bank of Kenya have supported the easing inflation. But we think now that the Central Bank or the CBK should start lowering a bit the interest rate so that we encourage the private sector to uptake more loan to create job opportunities, because again you may over control the base lending rate. So CBK had raised central bank rate to 13% to manage inflation expectation, but with inflation remaining low, the CBK lowered the central bank rate to 12.75% from 13%. And given that the federal rate has even gone down, we expect, I think it's on 10th, when CBK will release the new rates, then it should come down. In addition, favorable weather conditions coupled with targeted government interventions have also led to the reduction in the cost of food production, thereby lowering food inflation. So the other question, Mr. Speaker, was how has the economic disruption from the demonstrations coupled with the downgrade of Kenya's credit rating impacted the ability of Kenya to service her debts, and could the Cabinet Secretary explain any steps taken to stabilize the economy, restore investor confidence, and improve the credit rating? Here, Mr. Speaker, I would state as follows, that the credit rating agencies downgraded our country during the peak of the demonstration and stated that the Kenya's fiscal debt will not be impacted. So measures that have been taken to stabilize the economy and restore investor confidence include the following. 1, the government has continued to invest in agricultural productivity to support economic growth, which is projected at 5.2% in 2024 and 5.4% in 2025. The latest report was that we grew at only 4.6%, but that was expected. In fact, we even expected a slower growth. But now with 4.6%, we are sure if the peace prevails, Mr. Speaker, and all other fundamentals remain constant, then we would be able to achieve the target of 5.2% in 2024 and move even to 5.5% in 2025. Number 2, ensuring macroeconomic stability with inflation remaining below 5%, target for 3 consecutive months, largely driven by easing food and fuel prices. Overall, inflation remained stable at 4.4% and 4.3% respectively in August and July, and have added that in September it was 3.6%. Ensuring, number 3 is ensuring stability of the exchange rate, which has created confidence and triggered influence of foreign direct investment and attracted investors to the Nairobi Securities Exchange. I also want to add that our import cover is fairly healthy at about 4.6%. I mean 4.6 or monthly import cover. The other one is private investment will be supported by measures aimed at improving competitiveness, inclusivity, market efficiency, positive business sentiments, access to the international market, and projected foreign direct investment inflows. Investment will also benefit from an increased focus on public-private partnership, PPPs, following the new completion of the harmonization of the public investment policy, which will align PPP and public investment management frameworks. The other one is on fiscal stabilization. Fiscal consolidation will be supported by continued efforts to enhance domestic revenue mobilization, prioritize and rationalize expenditure while safeguarding priority government programs and social spending. Emphasis will be placed on enhanced revenue mobilization through a combination of tax, administrative, and tax policy reforms that include implementation of national tax policy and the medium-term revenue strategy that will further strengthen tax revenue mobilization efforts to about 20%. In fact, we are focusing on 22% of GDP over the medium term. It's not something that is bullet. Currently, it is 14% of GDP. That is our tax revenue as a percentage of GDP. We want it to move forward. We are in the process, as we speak, of rolling out a system for Kenya Revenue Authority. We are also focusing on non-tax measures that MDS can raise through the services they offer to the public, e.g. Ministry of Lands, Immigration, and Citizen Services, among others. We are also strengthening tax administration for enhanced compliance through scaling up use of technology to seal the leakages, as I've just said. We are also looking at state-owned enterprise reforms to generate savings, and also use of PPP to take out commercially viable projects from Exchequer. I know this is causing controversy at the moment, but Mr. Speaker, I want to just state that PPP as a concept is the way to go, to look for funding for major infrastructure projects, to take them off pressures on Exchequer. Kenya meets its debt obligations, Mr. Speaker, promptly, and no debt arrears have been accumulated. Public debt is projected to remain within sustainable levels on account of fiscal consolidation path that reflects decline in the ratio of debt to GDP in present value terms over the medium term. And to improve Kenya's debt sustainability and boost our credit rating position, the government will continue to implement measures to enhance growth of foreign exchange earnings by way of attracting direct foreign investment or foreign direct investment and pursuit of export promotion strategy. The last question, Mr. Speaker, the Senator for Kisumu wanted to know, and from me, that could the Cabinet Secretary outline any measures put in place by the government to ensure greater transparency and accountability in taxation and government spending. Mr. Speaker, the following is my response. In order to ensure transparency, the National Treasury usually invites the members of the public to submit proposals that will help the government improve tax revenue policy and boost revenue collection. Number two, during the preparation of finance bill, the National Treasury usually invites every stakeholder that submitted a proposal to shed more light on the proposal. And number three, during consideration of a finance bill in the National Assembly, members of the public are usually given time to go through the bill and submit their comments or views via a memorandum to the Department Committee of Finance and National Planning for consideration during the committee stage. But Mr. Speaker, two quick issues on generally how to improve transparency and accountability. And when I appeared before the National Assembly Committee on vetting, or the Appointments Committee, I stated very clearly that we must roll out e-procurement to all national MDS and even county governments. Mr. Speaker, one of my first tasks when I joined the ministry was to find out the status and the position and where the e-procurement system, which is end-to-end system, was. And Mr. Speaker, I was surprised that what the bottleneck was the 560 million to roll out the system. And that is why we have kept on postponing the rollout of this system, which would help us make efficient our procurement system and remove possible collusion in the system. I want to report that I actually gave authority under Article 223 of the Constitution, which I'm allowed the Constitution, the powers given to me by the Constitution, to make 560 million available for this rollout, and the procurement is ongoing. That amount is not comparable to the amount that I think we are losing as a country in terms of systems that are not transparent for procurement. Finally, Mr. Speaker, we are working on rolling out a unified payroll system, because we have our fears. And in my discussion with UNDP, which has conducted research in some other countries, I will not mention the country, but they told me that there's a country, when they did audit of the payroll, they discovered that 17% of the workers who are in the payroll were actually not there. They are ghost workers. And I suspect that Kenya could even be worse. So we need to have a system that would root out and get out these ghost workers in our system, which is denying us resources that we need badly for development. And we will be targeting, starting with the Ministry of Education, where we have the biggest wage bill, TSC and the others, so that we can root out. When I was PAC chair, Mr. Speaker, we came across an instance where some teachers remained in the payroll for so many years, even after they were dead. So if dead teachers can remain in payroll, then chances are that non-existent teachers could find their way in the payroll. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I submit.
Thank you, Cabinet Secretary. Senator Hezana, do you have any supplementary questions?
Mr. Speaker, I don't have any supplementary questions, only to and revamp that institution. I'm sure that you're going to be proudly celebrated across the whole country, and I hope the proceeds of the National Treasury, whatever comes down, trickles down to the community up north. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Eddie Okech, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And the CS has presented a number of questions, actually, including just the last submission, the procurement of this E2E system that will ensure that there is some prudence in terms of the financial management in the country. You know, facing a lot of audit queries in the counties, we've had a number of concerns where sometimes the requests at COB are always having no coherence with the audit reports of the Auditor General, which means that the financial system, there must be some voiding that is happening. So my question is, Bwana CS, actually it's a two-pronged question because of the audit function, or rather the oversight function of the Senate. Is there an impact assessment report on this system in terms of just projecting its effectiveness, that we can be able to access as a House, to be able to anticipate how that system would work in terms of arresting this, what I might call leakages and wastages in terms of financial flow? And is there a chance that the Treasury can be able to give